Good evening and welcome to this special edition of the Milford Board of Selectmen. It is Thursday, April 16th, 2015, 6 p.m. And we really have one issue to discuss tonight. It's regarding the letter of intent that the board received from Consigli Construction Company regarding a tax increment financing agreement. And at the last meeting we had Monday night, I know Bill had some questions and, wanted some additional information and so forth. So I believe that's been forthcoming. So let me turn it over to Bill. And, where would you like to go?
Well, what I'd like to do is just give a basic outline of the types of things that we were provided as a board since our last meeting. We were given a note, I'm not sure how to classify it. We were given iterations of various proposals, 3 to be specific. The first one that Consigli Construction had approached the town council and town administrator with. A second iteration called Revised. You'll see it at the top of the page if you've had an opportunity to print it out. And then what we have is Revised 2, which is the last proposal that Consigli Construction had provided. I just want to double check with the people who were participating in this. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, sir.
1, 2, and 3?
Yes, three spreadsheets.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
And along with that, we were provided some other documents. We were provided, specifically a soft copy version of the spreadsheet, which allowed for different scenarios to be plugged in and the spreadsheet to be manipulated in a way that allowed at least me, in the time that I had over the weekend, to look to see, as you plugged in different numbers associated with the exemption on any given year, what its impact was to both the savings to the company and the estimated incremental tax payment to the town over that period of time. So there was an opportunity to look at iterations and see, this also allowed me to come up to speed with what was discussed. There was a memo, I don't know what to call it. Rick, this was provided to us in our email.
Yes, I prepared that along.
Who wrote that?
Myself and Jerry.
All right, it would just be helpful in the
Yeah,
future.
that's my, but.
We
yeah.
get the headers and
Yeah.
know who it's from.
Yeah, myself and town council.
And, let me just say this.
Yep.
There was a piece I did want to revisit, and I'm going to be brief with it, but I do think it's appropriate that we have the discussion. Part of this memo says it should be understood by all as made clear to the company, that is Consigli Construction, the process of providing input, the company could not and was not deemed to be negotiations. Look, I think any reasonable person would have viewed that as negotiations. As a matter of fact, it was represented by the consultant that they were negotiations during the presentation by Consigli Construction. So let me just say I want to be constructive in my response to what's transpired. I want to be hard on the process and not necessarily hard on the people. So I hope we've learned something by the process, and I'd like to say that it is my expectation, and I hope my other colleagues join me, that any TIF agreements conceptually are run by the board. The board has the opportunity prior to negotiations and back and forth that we get an opportunity to input to that, and it's not negotiable within our own department. It's an expectation that I have, and I expect to be involved. And I hope everybody's walked away with that understanding from our past discussion in the last meeting. Personally, I find it somewhat embarrassing that a company with the standing that Consigli Construction has was set back a little bit by that, and they were clearly under the impression that they were negotiating. That's contrary, by the way, to what the memo says. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, I, to be honest with you, I probably ran 20 or 30 scenarios utilizing the spreadsheet that was provided. I don't want to drag out the process. I've seen the various iterations, and what I'd like to propose to the members of the board is an alternate proposal and give the members opportunity to look at that, see that.
Thank you.
Basically, what it does is it comes in between one of the iterations that the town had submitted back to Consigli. And what it does is provides what I would consider significant exemption, not necessarily where the Consigli Construction had come in on their last recommendation. And so let me outline it a little bit. It begins with a 95% exemption and works to 30% over the 15-year period. It provides for 63% exemption, tax exemption on their new proposed construction versus the 68 that was provided by Consigli Construction in their last offer. It also provides for $643,000 worth of savings, approximately, and $643,408 versus the $694 that Consigli Construction had last proposed. It provides estimated tax payments to the town of $377,000 versus the $326,804 that they had proposed. So if there's any questions how I arrived at that, it's basically a lot of manipulation of a spreadsheet, but that's what I'd like to make a motion to go forward with, and subject to discussion and review by this board.
Can I just ask you a question on it, Bill?
Sure.
As I'm looking at this, how do you come up with the total average of 63% on the exemption?
That's calculated by the spreadsheet itself. What I did is I did have a discussion with town accountant Zach Taylor to confirm that the math that was done and the formulas that were used within the spreadsheet were accurate, so that any time a change was made to the exemption, it auto-calculated within the spreadsheet. And so he
So-
was confident that the formulas that existed within these columns were.
So if you look at the revised one that we got, that also has the 63%, which I guess is the one that Jerry and Rick got back to Consigli with. And when you look at that 63%, the TIF number is 640,000, but when you look at the 63% on yours, the TIF number is 643,000.
Right, I think what you'll see within the formulas, if you were to dig into the formulas, it does some rounding, dropping off some of the decimal points. So you can still be within the 63% and still make a change to the formula and still stay within that percentage.
It would seem to me that if the percentages were the same, then, and it's not significant, I mean, the numbers aren't.
$3,000 difference.
Yeah, the numbers aren't that much different,
Roughly.
I'm just trying to get an understanding,
Sure.
yeah. Because it's got a difference of 643 to 640, the tax payment to the town, yours has 377,000, this one has 381, and then the total taxes to the town, 533, under this one was 537.
Yeah, I think
I just don't know, yeah.
in order to go deeper, the best that I can say is we'd probably need to break down the spreadsheet, and I just took Zach on his word that he had done that, looked and made sure that the calculations were correct in the
Yeah.
basis formulas.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a second for discussion, just so
Sure.
we can?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to interrupt you, I just know we're talking a lot, so I just felt better doing that. But,
Okay.
so
Well,
you
no.
can finish your thought, and then I
Yeah.
mean, I got a few things to say, obviously, so.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, the only thing that's confusing to me, and maybe I'm not understanding it, in the aggregate, when you see the same percentage, I'm not sure why the numbers are changing. Is it because it's a different split of the different exemptions per
Exactly.
year?
Exactly, that's
Okay.
exactly what it does.
Okay, all right. Will?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure how this was gonna go tonight, but, you said it was gonna be straightforward, and it is, so I appreciate that. The only thing, once I started looking at everything, was the 3 years at 100%. I know that's what we've certainly done in the past when Rick provided the historical sheet there, and obviously Jerry's been doing this for quite a few years, and I'm sure that's probably been the way we did things. To me, this is more symbolic than anything, and I certainly don't want to minimize it, what we're discussing. But at least in the first couple of years, even having it 95% exempt, I guess paying $3,400 is a little bit closer to what a residential tax bill is. So I feel like it's probably more symbolic, but I do feel better seeing something other than 100% exemption in those 3 years. Besides that, I mean, it is if everything was formulated correctly based on the spreadsheet, it is a $50,000 difference. Obviously coming to the town, which is a positive. I certainly don't want to say $50,000 is symbolic, but I do think it's symbolic that they are paying something from year one. So I do appreciate that, Bill.
Thank you. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Chairman, if you will. That was one of the things that I actually targeted from the first or the last version is, being mindful of what an outstanding company Consigli Construction is and how important it is to this community over the many, many years, hundreds of years. It was important to me to, as I worked through different scenarios, to work out the 100% exemptions. Now, when you take out 100% exemption for the benefit of anybody here, anybody watching at home, you put a 95% exemption, it means that in year one, somebody is paying, that the TIF would allow for that company on a 20,000 square foot facility to pay $3,400. So it's not as if there's a radical shift, and to use Will's term, somewhat symbolic, that there are no zeros here, zero or 100% exemption and zero payments and taxes. It's not that it hasn't been done before, but it was something that I worked through various scenarios and thought it'd be important as well. So I'm glad that was noticed.
Okay. Just a couple of things, and I know you referenced the process in terms of what the town administrator and town council did. And, I'd like to just maybe take a little bit of, just a little different tack on that. To be quite frank, it's the same process that's been done with these types of agreements all of the years that I've been on the board, and even, I guess, before I got on the board, when there were other tax agreements granted to Taylor and Holmes. So, I mean, to me, when the company reaches out to the town's representatives, which would be the full-time town administrator and town council, and looks to present a proposal, I think we would look to those qualified individuals to meet with the company, provide input, and then come to us with a proposal. And that's what happened. So, I don't know that what happened was any different than what's happened in the past. And quite frankly, I view that as Rick and Jerry doing their jobs and being responsive to a company within the town that, wants to make a proposal. So I don't view it as a negative thing at all. I view it as a positive that they actually met with the company, provided input. I mean, I guess the alternative might be that they refused to meet with the company, didn't want to do anything, and then where is the company at? So I think the process getting it to this point was exactly, how we've done it in the past. So I don't.
Not how I've done it, Mr. Chairman. And I've been involved in a few. We've been approached conceptually. We've asked if it wanted to be, we were asked and involved whether we wanted to entertain the discussion. We were requested to provide input as to what types of parameters we'd be interested in entertaining during that process. And our representatives had parameters by which to go by. So your representation is done in the past. It was done prior to my involvement 10 years ago. and it was frankly done on agreements that I wouldn't have signed, so I just want to respond to that.
All right, well, let's take a look at that, because I looked at some of the ones that we did, and, I didn't have to go too far. The most recent one that we did was St. Gobain. And there was a tax proposal, and it was dated September 8th, 2009. That was correspondence from the town administrator to myself. And it said basically in early July of 2009, Mr. Solazzi was contacted by officials from St. Gobain to discuss a possible TIF. On July 30th, 2009, he, with town council and town planner, met with company officials to discuss proposals, as well as the future of the company. And I'm enclosing information for your review. That's exactly what happened here. We go back a little further, and there was IRA, the IRA Motor Group. And February of 2006, there's an email from a Michelle Camerata to Mr. Solazzi, and writing on behalf of Scott Butcher, I guess someone from IRA Motor, which outlines speaking points for your presentation of IRA's tax increment financing proposal to the board.
That was prior to my involvement, so.
In 2006? Okay, I thought you were on the board in 2006, but maybe I'm wrong. The Midtown Family Fitness and Racquetball, which I thought was a really nice TIF agreement. They actually gave a grant to the town and a donation to the bike trail. And what happened was, there was correspondence to Mr. Solazzi. I appreciate the time that both you and Mr. Moody spent with me today to review the TIF agreement proposal that I submitted on August 30th, 2005 for our project on Sumner Street. And he goes, I'd like to offer the town a $2,000 donation Selectmen could use for the new bike trail. And then Lou got back to them on September 27th, 2005, and at the September 26th meeting, the Board of Selectmen discussed the proposal submitted by you, and we approved it.
Yeah.
And that was done on that one. And just to kind of show the history
But I know of no
the
negotiations,
process.
Mr. Chairman. So I know of no negotiations that happened back and forth between council and people that were submitting TIFs.
Well, this is what happened. This is what
Well,
happened.
I'm-
So,
I don't see the
reviewed these
negotiations,
fi-
but,
I reviewed the file. Now going back to October of '03, okay, Lowe's contacted Lou, and again, pursuant to today's meeting with you, Mr. Gerald Moody and Mark Cote of New Landmark Group, Lowe's Home Centers accepts and agrees to the revised tax increment financing schedule below.
and you were not involved in that revision?
And this was the initial contact before it even came to the board. So
there were
basically,
revisions that they
Sure.
agreed to
Yeah,
before the Board of
yeah.
Selectmen saw it?
yeah, there were basically discussions that were
Okay.
had, I think, with the town representatives. And then it came to us, and, there was discussion and stuff before that. Going back again even further to Clark, June 30th of 2003. Mr. Solazzi said, as directed by the board, I, along with Town Council Moody and Town Planner Larry Duncan, have met with officials of Clark to discuss their proposed TIF. So,
So that says that
So-
something came to the board, they were directed by the board
absolutely.
to go have
Absolutely.
discussions, okay?
So basically, it's been the process that I've seen, and I think that you've seen, maybe it appeared a little bit different in this instance, but I think if you go back and review these files, you'll see quite clearly that the same thing that happened in all of these other TIFs happened here. So, again, and I don't want to really belabor it, and I apologize for going through some of these somewhat laborious correspondence. But, I don't want to leave everybody with the impression that, our town council, our town administrator did something wrong, because I think they actually did their job.
Okay.
And, I think that that's a positive thing that we have personnel like that do things like that. So, that's what I would like to comment about the process. Now, we are at where we are at, and you have the summary in terms of the discussions that were had with the Consigli Construction. Now, you've presented a proposed revised agreement, which basically, tweaks the percentages. If we just deal with the percentages, I think the other numbers fall into line. And, that's fine, that's okay. I guess the problem that I have with it, and, maybe because when I look at precedential things, I try to keep things in a progressive manner. And I look back at the last one that we did with St. Gobain, and, I see, percentages very similar to what was most recently put forth by Consigli. And when I see that type of an agreement, then I start thinking about the companies. And I don't want to say anything negative about St. Gobain. They've been a good corporate citizen. They've done some nice things for the town of Milford. It's a great business to have here. But Consigli Construction has, I think, gone over and above what a corporation needs to do in the community. When we were having trouble at the youth center,
You bet.
they opened up their wallet to the tune of $50,000, close to $100,000 to put all brand-new windows in, didn't even bat an eyelash.
Very generous, yeah.
They provided a tremendous amount of technical assistance to put together a grant to try to get solar panels and a new roof on the building through, I think it was the State Energy Fund. It was like a $2.3 million grant application. They turned over all of their engineering department to the town.
Yeah.
They put together probably one of the best grant applications I've ever seen. I don't know how that we didn't get it. And that doesn't even mention really what you worked on with them. You did a nice job. And I think that was a favor to the town to remove the granite building. That was a problem. And we really didn't know what to do. It was certainly going to cost us money. You had hazardous material there. You had buried oil, a buried underground oil tank. It was not an easy thing, and they stepped to the plate and they did it.
They did.
Yes, they got an agreement. I don't know the finances on that, but I'll bet they didn't make a whole lot of money on that deal. I'll just, that's my inclination, that was not a financial investment for them. So, I have a lot of respect for the work that you did here. Certainly, the numbers are in line, and I'm sure, the company would probably be glad to do it. But, to me, I think a company like Consigli, the type of company they are, knowing that that's the kind of business that we really want to court and support in the town of Milford, and the work that they've done for the community, and I don't mean to offend anybody, I don't want to nickel and dime them. I really don't. I mean, they've had some negotiations, the numbers are what the numbers are, and I think that's quite fair, and, I mean, that's where I'm at on this. But let me just say one other thing. Let me say one other thing, because, we're all talking about is this tax break, and that's a real misnomer. This is not a tax break. This is a development incentive, because if we don't go forward on this agreement, there is no increased taxes, whether you're talking 1%, 2%, 90%, whatever. This is not a tax break. This is a development incentive. Do we want to give the company an incentive to develop and commit further to the town of Milford? And we never gave it that name. That comes down from the state,
Sure.
And that's, but I just really want to kind of set the record straight in terms of what we're talking about doing. So,
Yeah, and I think you see three members who are trying to work in the right direction to put together something, and at the same time, in my opinion, as well as everybody else involved, be mindful of the community. I don't at any point think that the Consigli Construction Company is not mindful of the community, but they have a business to run. I don't think that the adjustments are deal breakers, and I think my sense is that I'd like to see this go off to Consigli Construction to hopefully be ratified. If not, come back with something else or decline it. But it would be my hope that they would look at the adjustments favorable, not view them as all that significant, but closer to the original proposal that was discussed.
yeah, and I guess,
And I don't think-
again,
I don't think Jerry and Rick were
That-
nickel
that's
and diming
fine.
them either when they submitted that proposal either.
No, I think that they were giving them input and giving them an idea as to what this board might consider reasonable or unreasonable. And I mean, you're right, you know, all of these revisions, they're all in the ballpark.
Yep.
You know, they're all in the ballpark. I just, you know, look to mirror it towards, you know, St. Cobain and say, look, these are the numbers that were put forth on that particular agreement. This is at least the same or maybe a better investment to the town of Milford, to a company that's done nothing but good for the town of Milford. Why, you know, why do I want to give them a worse deal? That's kind of where I'm at. So, let me turn it over to Will.
Thank you.
'Cause I've definitely talked too much. I apologize.
No. I think this is a good compromise. I appreciate Rick's forwarding everything over because I did play with that spreadsheet quite a bit as well. And I shouldn't say play because it's a pretty serious matter, but it was interesting to see how you could easily flow through the exemption and what the dollars equaled and everything like that. At first, at 68%, I think of it like a 70-30 split. I was kind of thinking 60-40. I think this is a decent compromise. I can't imagine that they'd say no to this. I know I only received 4 phone calls, and I thought I'd get a lot more involvement. They weren't favorable to this deal, favorable to these things at all. I expressed to each one of those small business owners that I think a tool like this can be very favorable, especially when all the things both you gentlemen spoke about Consigli Construction. So it may not make those 4 gentlemen feel any better or based on the taxes that they pay, but this is a company that employs quite a few people and quite honestly, quite a few Milford people. So I think I did second this. I'd like to see it go forward. I know in the first year, they're obviously paying less taxes than I certainly do for a piece of property. And I think that Anthony would probably, and I hope, respect the fact that it is, again, not to minimize it, but more symbolic than anything. And I think that helps me feel more comfortable with it.
Okay, so, so let's, for lack of a better term, let's call this revision 3. So that's the one that's on the table right now, which is
Okay.
the one that Bill put together. And are you comfortable sending that back to Consigli?
I think so. I think it's a good compromise.
Okay.
It's closer to what Jerry and Rick had initially, to be honest with you, so.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm not going to be voting against it. I would prefer to go forward with the revised 2, which I think is more in line with what was done with the St. Gobain company. But looking at it, the difference is really de minimis. So, you know, it doesn't make sense to have a dispute over something that, where the numbers are that close together.
It's a 5% difference.
Yeah, so it's, you know, and the percentage of, yeah, exactly, all right. So the R2 has the exemption at 68%, and yours has a 63% exemption.
Correct.
Yeah, so, again, it's not so far away that, you know, I certainly don't wanna stop or slow this process, because I think it's very, very important to the long-term economic growth of the town of Milford. You need to have these kinds of businesses here, not for today, not for tomorrow, but
Hopefully another 100 years.
for the long term.
Agreed.
And that's the way Milford keeps its competitive advantage despite having a dual tax rate.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yeah.
might, you know, the thing I have to say is for those businesses, and there are some businesses that certainly would take exception to this, you know, I would encourage them to come to us. If they're growing by 50 people, if they are going to represent such a large-scale investment in the community, I would tell them to come to us and approach us. That's the best advice I have to anyone. I understand the plight, I understand the challenges, and while I'm not a business owner myself, I've heard from them a great deal. I understand the calls that Will got, and the only thing I can say is, you know, come to us. If you've got this kind of growth and you're ready to expand your headquarters, bring it to us.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I just want to add too that, you know, one of the things, again, it was only a couple of conversations, but not everyone can afford to be, but not everyone also chooses to be as charitable as the Consiglies
Right.
are. So I think that we send this back to them. I think, you know, Anthony's a good businessman. If he wants to deny it or come back to the table and talk more, I certainly know I'd entertain it, so.
And again, and I know with the phone calls you get, and I really just brought it up tonight, I really think we have to make it clear, this is really not a tax break. It's an
I agree with
incentive,
you.
it's an incentive to develop. Because if you don't go forward on this
Get
project,
the additional tax dollars.
that's it.
Yep.
They're not, you know, presumably the company's not gonna develop,
Mm-hmm.
so you're not gonna get any tax dollars, other than what's existing on the property now. So I think it's a misnomer as to what it's called. Okay, so with that, we have a motion that's been seconded to submit to the Consigli Construction Company the proposal that I will title Revised 3. And we've had plenty of discussion on it. It's not my first choice, but in the art of compromise, I'm certainly not going to be voting against it. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming here on Thursday night. It's a little unusual.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to adjourn,
Seconded?
seconded. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
I'll give you a hard copy.
Thank-